So, I've recently been reading about the legendary or infamous PR person or propagandist, Edward Bernays, and I'd like to start off with a passage. So, in his book Propaganda, there's this part that says, a group of citizens writes and talks in favor of a certain course of action in some debatable question, believing that it is promoting the best interest of the community. Propaganda? Not a bit of it. Just a plain, forceful statement of truth. But let another group of citizens express opposing views, and they are promptly labeled with the sinister name of propaganda. So, the whole point of that is that ideally, having opposing views would not be viewed as propaganda, but in fact, in a lot of cases, especially in modern times, it is. Now, you can thank Edward Bernays for the way that companies advertise nowadays because he is basically the pioneer of what is modern advertisement. Now, as far as advertisement within esports is concerned, well, that's the best way for, say, for instance, Riot Games to make money. It just makes the most sense because that's how most modern companies actually make money anyways, is not it's not necessarily off of you buying a product wholesalely, but also too the other revenue generator is by selling your data, and by selling your data in some ways that's also by selling you to advertisers, right? And so that also means like selling your attention. Like your attention is very, very valuable, and people have started to realize this. So now the question begins, well, Riot didn't have any ads before, so why are all of a sudden that they're pushing all these ads, and 2020, I think that was the first year where we had that weird MasterCard pop up with all the sounds and shit, which was actually kind of annoying, and then they toned down the volume of it. But, well, it's because businesses exist to make money. That's their entire purpose. They are not ethically sound at all. Like they aren't beholden to any ethics really, other than the loose boundaries maybe that they have to abide by. But otherwise, they'll still push those boundaries anyways, as we've seen them do over and over again. And then you have to realize too that Riot Games are not just Riot Games anymore. It's not 2015 anymore or 2014, right? Tencent bought out Riot Games in 2015. And obviously Tencent is a fucking gigantic company, and what they care about, and especially as companies get bigger and bigger, all they care about is the profit margin. So obviously Riot are going to have to shift their philosophy to make the LCS or the LEC actually profitable, because they were operating at a loss the entire time anyways, right? And it gets a little fudgy, right? Because obviously it's a marketing arm of what is League of Legends itself, right? Like the esports. So like technically you could say that they are making some kind of return off of it, but it's not direct, right? So I think a common misconception about maybe how Riot are doing their advertisements is that people don't understand that there are different types of advertisement packages that you can do just as a company, or even, like myself as a content creator, etc. So first, and probably most annoying, is call outs, right? So it's to say, yeah, that Red Bull Baron power play was fantastic, or, welcome to the State Farm analyst desk. And they actually say the ad. That's a call out, right? And the reason why a call out is important, at least in the modern day, is because the call out basically implicitly ties those two products together. It ties the game, and it ties the person saying it, and it ties the actual advertisement. And that becomes even more so important, like for content creators, for instance. I know what's becoming more popular is for like podcasters to do a call out. And instead of, just say this is sponsored by, blah, 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 or even have just a little logo on the screen of the advertisement, it's like, no, they'll go into maybe a whole story of like, oh yeah, I use this product, it's great, etc. So the more elaborate the call out, the more expensive that it's going to be as far as the advertisement package. That's why Riot are doing that particular, way of it, of saying the State Farm analyst desk or whatnot, right? Now, visuals is obviously another aspect. I think we all get that. And the fact that there is an ad on the screen, or rather, maybe there are ads like inside the game. We've seen that more now, to where like Dragon Pit or Baron Pit will, be like decked out in Oppo or something like that, with Oppo banners or whatever. Then you have product placement. And product placement is, well, if they sell a physical product, then you can actually have that somewhere on the screen, right? So like at the analyst desk, for instance, they have like Red Bull fridge in the back, right? And maybe they have Red Bull cans on the desk. And that is just, it's basically just tapping into like the psychological aspect of association, right? You're inherently associating that product with the LCS or with the casters, etc. Whether you like to I guess acknowledge that or not, it's happening, right? And you can't really avoid it because of your fucking lizard brain. So the absolute fucking entitlement of people saying that they're so annoyed by these ads, or like it's so intrusive, etc., even though that they still enjoy the LCS and they like the product and they want to continue to watch the product, like the cognitive dissonance of both of those two different things just shows the level of immaturity of the people that are arguing against it. Like it's so insane. Like I can't even imagine these kids existing like back in the early days of the internet, where a lot of people didn't even have it. Like I mean, I think I've gone through more years without the internet than with the internet, now that I think about it. And so like for them to be able to exist in that type of world, I don't even think they'd be able to handle that. So as the famous saying goes, you are the product. If you clearly aren't buying anything, then you are the product itself, right? Like as the famous saying goes. So this is what happens when you don't purchase anything, right? Is the fact that you have to be the product now. Now, what's odd is the fact that all these people that are arguing that they don't want to see these ads, but also that they don't want to pay for anything either. So they just want money to come out of thin air, but they'll happily pay for like a fucking Crunchyroll account or a Netflix account, or they'll even subscribe to their favorite like Twitch streamer or whatever. And now you're thinking, oh, well, Izento, like that's completely different because those things are offering multiple different products inside of it, right? I could watch a whole bunch of different animes, or I could watch a whole bunch of different movies, etc. But all that it actually boils down to is entertainment. Are you not entertained for a couple of hours in a weekend? So it's the same thing. You are purchasing entertainment. So therefore, if you think LCS is actually an entertaining product, then theoretically, or in an ideal world, you would need to purchase to actually be entertained. So, and then on top of that, a lot of people are saying, well, like a lot of these people, they're teenage kids, so they couldn't even afford a subscription if they wanted to. Actually, that's fucking completely wrong. So most people are thinking that it's teenage kids that are watching esports. It's like, no, it's teenage kids that are playing the video game. That's not the same thing as watching the esport. They're two different demographics. And so and everyone completely confuses the two in thinking that they're the same thing when they're actually not. They're way more casual gamers than people assume when they think of League of Legends or the esport itself. And actually, the average age is 28 years old, according to Esports Observer in 2017. I'll link the article down below, actually. And then on top of that, even just going from my own Google Analytics of people that watch this YouTube channel, it's like people 25 and older. Like there are hardly any 18-year-old demographics that actually watch this entire channel. I think it's like 80% is 25 and older. And I'm not the fucking memeiest person, like I wouldn't get a Fortnite meme if you fucking threw it at me. But the point is that no, the average age is not anywhere fucking near 18 years old as far as like the esports demographic. So that entire thing is completely false. Now, comes the problem of brainwashing, right? It's like, well, I don't want all these ads in my face because like it's clearly fucking brainwashing. And it clearly is brainwashing. I'm not going to lie. Like I have no real rebuttal to that because but it's in a maybe a different way than you think. So Edward Bernays is actually one of the pioneers of this type of marketing technique as well, which is make them think that they thought of it, right? So make them think that they thought of purchasing something just out of their own, head or out of their own idea. And he's very famous for doing a lot of this, or infamous for doing a lot of this. And, I think I've cited this before of how he actually made it to where it was acceptable for women to smoke in America because he ended up doing this advertisement at the Macy's parade. This was I think it was like in the 60s or something when the feminist movement was going on. And he had women go out into the parade lighting cigarettes. And that started to bubble up the topic of, oh yeah, women should be empowered to, be able to smoke or whatever, right? Like men do it. And so, yeah, I guess you won, feminists, right? Like, I guess you got equal treatment like you wanted to. So at the end of the day, yeah, you are, I think, going to be influenced by these types of ads, but that's to say of the modern market and how people have sacrificed their purchasing power in order to essentially be influenced in some other way, which is now advertisements, right? And the subliminal messaging, I guess. And you think like, oh, I'm not going to buy your shitty product anyways. It's like, no, actually what you're going to do is you're going to eventually cognitively have that in the back of your mind, and you aren't ever going to recognize really where you got that idea or where it's naturally coming from or your inclination towards a specific product or a specific idea. And even if you aren't thinking about, insurance, say with State Farm, or rather thinking of State Farm themselves as insurance, you're still going to be in that entire ecosphere. Like this is a classic thing of what Edward Bernays was talking about in part of that book that I just read, Propaganda. He talks about the idea of having someone think about just buying pianos in general. Say, if you have an advertisement for Steinway, it doesn't matter if they don't buy Steinway exactly. The idea of buying a piano in and of itself will put them in that entire sphere and actually still make them more likely to eventually buy a Steinway or, recommend a Steinway to someone else if you can afford a $80,000 piano. So now we have the alternative, pay-per-view. Pay-per-view is like the only other thing that we can go towards. Well, yes, we could do that, but also too, then what would end up happening is there would be a lot of illegal streams popping up, right? And this is the whole thing of what happened back in the early 2000s when it came to pirating, right? With all like Napster and with LimeWire and shit, or with the Pirate Bay, right, for movies and stuff, and really you would end up actually losing out on a lot of money from that, especially considering that if your average viewer is actually tech savvy, which esports people are, then everyone would just start illegal streaming. So then you would end up losing out a fuck ton of money if you went to pay-per-view, and people would be pirating the shit out of your product. And the good thing about advertisement in esports or sponsorships in esports is the fact that even if someone did say hypothetically someone did pirate your shit anyways, even though it is for free currently right now, well, they can't take the ad out of the fucking game, or they can't take the ad out of the broadcast itself, unless you want to miss a chunk of the play, or you want to miss part of the commentary within the game, which is highly unlikely. Then that's like a foolproof way of injecting what would be a revenue return for you, as Riot Games, and saying, well, they really have no choice but to listen to this anyway. So we're going to get our sponsorship dollar amount from that regardless, right? So that circumvents that whole thing of illegal streaming or just not paying for the product itself. And that's the biggest problem with what pay-per-view would be anyways. So I think all in all, advertisement and sponsorships are here to stay, and people should realize the nuances about what advertisement is, or the different types of advertisement. The problems with pay-per-view and, illegal streaming eventually would end up popping up like fucking crazy. But it just sounds like incredibly fucking entitled. And it sounds like the people that argue against advertisement, or maybe even the somewhat aggressive advertisement of what it is, because yes, call outs are somewhat aggressive in a sense, but it just shows that they have like a very childlike idea of money itself, and how people pay for things, or how companies actually operate and trying to get revenue itself, and to be in the green rather than in the red. And obviously Riot Games are being dictated by the huge conglomerate Tencent. So at the end of the day, if this is the sacrifice that we have to do, which it is because we refuse to do pay-per-view anyways, then so be it.